Welcome to a hands-on introduction to large language models like Bing Chat and ChatGPT. This title is a misnomer because these are not large language models, they're services running the same large language model. There are many terms of jargon here in this space. No one agrees with them. So one of the things that I want to do today is talk through the various ways of thinking about these tools, thinking about how to appropriately use them, understanding how they are dangers and how they are opportunities, and working through some examples. I am Dr. Brian Balson-Stanton. I am a researcher and professional staff here at the university in the Faculty of Arts. I am Solutions Architect, open paren, Digital Humanities, closed paren, for the Faculty of Arts. No, I don't know what that means either. So hopefully everyone has Bing Copilot or Chat on your computer. Everyone has a computer, which is fantastic. That means we don't have to back up to phones, and we can go there. One thing I definitely encourage you to do is, as I am talking, use Bing Chat to try to explain things, because it will get it right and it will get it wrong in rough proportion. And if you want to check one of its explanations, that's a great interruption, because what we can do is we can work through your prompt and we can work through the explanation, and I think that that will be an excellent exchange. To use Bing Chat, the link that I recommend is bing.com/new. You must do this from Microsoft Edge in an account logged in as a personal account. But yes, please interrupt me. Please play with these tools as I am talking, and when they get something hilariously wrong, let's play with that together. So, who am I and why am I giving this presentation? I have a PhD in the philosophy of data. So I asked a decade ago, what is the nature of data? And it turns out that that is a shockingly relevant philosophical question now. And a BS and MS in information technology. So I'm a technologist and a philosopher. And my job here at Macquarie is basically like SALT. So when researchers have a grant or research project and they need technology, I just get shaken on to the project. I'm a peer collaborator with researchers. This presentation, as I said, is open source. It is licensed Creative Commons by. You are welcome to use it. And happily, I've sent it all to you, so I don't have to pause while everyone gets out their phone. So, what's the plan for today? The plan for today is before the break at 2:30, I'll be talking about how to think about these tools, the concepts involved, the dangers involved, the understanding, the high-level understanding of these tools. After the break, we'll be going into their uses and their specific risks of confabulation, and we'll be ending with audience questions. So in the invite, I asked for folks to send in questions, and so that list at the end is getting longer. If you take nothing else from today, remember that a large language model in its tone to you is always confident. It always uses a confident tone, but it is usually correct. Specifically, these models have no conception of what a fact is. They cannot operate on things as facts or opinions or confidence or what have you. They predict the next word, which means that their tone and register, how they tell you something, does not change based on any sort of epistemic, questions of knowledge, status. They are always confident, because when you read comments online, those comments are basically always confident. The term of art here is not hallucination, but it is confabulation. Confabulation is the idea that patients sometimes make statements that are false or engage in behaviors that reflect false statements or belief, but they do this with no deliberate intention to deceive. These models do not hallucinate. They do not see something that isn't there, because that is implying far too much creativity and cognitive activity, and is therefore giving you a false sense of their capabilities. Instead, because these models predict the next word, they will make a plausible sounding word so that they can get to the end of the pattern, and that is why confabulation is a more apt term. There is no intention to deceive. There is no creativity. There is no false perception. It is merely having a start and an end and making up the bits in the middle. Remember, in this as in everything, you own the output if you put your name to it. You own the output if you put your name to it. And on a calculator, if you put in the wrong numbers and in that have your quarterly earnings be incorrect, it is your fault. It is not the calculator's fault. This tool cannot be fired. Therefore, this tool cannot be at fault. And we'll get more into that at the end. Now, one thing that I've done throughout this presentation is when I have art or whatnot generated by a large language model, I have a sidebar of the prompts that I used to do that, and I have links to that exchange in case people want to see how I generated this art. So, what are these generative AI/LLM things, and how should we think about them? Now, terms of art. Generative AI versus large language model. If you cast your mind back a few years, you'll remember people talking about AI or machine learning. In many ways, generative AI/large language models maps to that same in-group, out-group identification. That marketers trying to sell you things will use the term AI, and people in the tech industry will use the term ML, and that marketers trying to sell you things will use the term generative AI, and people in the tech industry will use the term LLM. That mapping is roughly equivalent. If you want to be precise, a generative AI usually implies a service which offers an interface to a large language model. But that nuance is lost in vastly all of the communication, public communication. So, what is a large language model? It is a very, 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 very large neural network algorithm trained on most of the internet. If you think about it, what it does is it's a relatively simple computation that is fed most of the internet. It's fed the data source from commoncrawl.org. It is fed most of Reddit, various scraped tweets, quite a lot of pirated books, and so on and so forth. And so it is called a large language model because it is a language model which is fed a large amount of text. That's why it's called the large language model. These things presently are powering generative AI. Now, one thing that I'd like to mention is Bing Chat was announced on February 7th, 2023, which means that it is 226 days old. This technology, in its popular conception, is 226 days old, which means that in terms of the hype cycle, right, in terms of, if you remember back to the web and Bitcoin and all that stuff, right now we are about here. We have no real products using these technologies. Chatbots are tech demos. Trying to use these tech demos for anything resembling real work is a pain in the... We have not reached the peak of inflated expectations because that would require a product. Now, Google and Microsoft are desperately trying to cram generative AI, which is both a floor wax and dessert topping, into all of their products. And there's some interesting articles about how affordances are changing. But remember that right now, we're here. There are no real products that change how you interact with the world that I can tell have been announced, much less delivered. We don't even know the height of our inflated expectations, much less what will come crashing down to earth.
Are we saying we don't have any products for the large language models today? But
yes.
Isn't like Siri,
no,
all those, because they're using AI and using voice and answering question, are there products using the AI or generative AI, sorry?
Listen to so they are products which use AI, but they are not products which use generative AI. They are machine learning models which mostly do voice parsing based on an incredibly limited set of inputs, which is why you have to keep repeating yourself to Siri. I need to be super careful what I'm going to say here because this is being recorded. I know a lot of folks who are working on it, but to my understanding, no assistant currently has deployed with generative AI. Not least because that would be lighting much larger wheelbarrows full of cash on fire than they presently do. That running these large language models is hideously expensive relative to normal operations. Like we're talking cents to dollars per exchange, not hundredths of cents. So right now we have no products that I'm aware of that genuinely use this, but people are obviously exploring this field with great abandon. Any other questions?
Clarification on
yeah. Yes.
ChatGPT is a generative AI.
Yes.
And ChatGPT is essentially costless to run to use in a company.
No.
Not the company producing it, the companies that are using it if they've signed up to GPT-4 or...
Yeah, I mean, and it's $20 a month, but that rounds to zero, yes.
Those things are not expensive for the company to use in principle. The difficulty might be the company's still trying to find a purpose to how to put it in their product, how to change all of the nature of the way their product works, that sort of expense. Is that what you mean?
No.
About the cost of running a generative AI model?
But three things there. First, the interface of a chatbot is the world's worst interface because you talk with it and it will always respond and it will never give you an error message. This is not a productive interface because it doesn't allow you to do a thing besides engage with this tech demo unless you engage in a very weird way of interacting with it. So I do not consider ChatGPT's products or Bing Chat to be useful products. I consider them to be tech demos. Second, OpenAI is offering this for $20 a month as a loss leader. Happily, Microsoft invested $10 billion with them and is, well, wheelbarrows full of money are just rolling out the door. So the cost to use versus the cost to run are not nearly the same. And one thing you'll notice that is if you're using their API, the application programming interface, the way one computer talks to another, one exchange will usually run out at about $1 to cost to you. So this is not ready for customers in any sense of scale. Other questions?
To help her generate content.
Yes.
But I guess I gather from what you're saying is she's basically just using another one of these chatbots.
Yes. Yes.
So it's quite simple.
It is simplistic. There are no guardrail. Yes, precisely. Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Is that OpenAI signed up something on the close order of 100 million users in weeks to months. These tech demos are astonishingly persuasive, right? I have edited journal articles with them. I have written code with them with GitHub Copilot. But we haven't seen actual deployment beyond the hype in a way that changes how we work yet.
Doesn't change how you work, but it's kind of handy for things like I need a speech for a week.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and that's why I'm giving this workshop, because it has changed how I program. It has genuinely changed how I write code, which is shocking to me because I've been writing code for 20 years. And changing how I do something so fundamental is astonishing. But that's not a product. That's something that that GitHub has bolted on and Microsoft has bolted on and gone, isn't this cool? And the fact that they've been able to do that and caused people to make these changes in how they interact with the world when we're here, I do not know what's going to happen up there. That's what I'm trying to communicate. The reason why I'm giving these workshops now is because understanding how to think about these tools, because these tools say I, and believing these tools is wrong, is very important. Because as they are integrated into more and more products, those lines are going to blur, and it will be harder and harder to have accurate conceptions about them. So that is the motivation for this workshop. Because, and what I'm going to get into in this workshop, goodness, I've been talking for 20 minutes, I'm on the third slide, this is going according to plan. The problems with confabulation, right? This slide, everyone's super excited, and then they understand the actual implications of this slide, and they go, oh. And the critical mode that you, the user, need to engage with these tools in makes it utterly unsuitable for Alexa or Siri or the Google Assistant, because we have expectations of literal accuracy from these tools. And we don't want to have to, as we are cooking in the kitchen, stop and go, okay, is this something that I can believe, or is this something that I have to double, like, and that mode switch is what's causing people to go, ah. So no, I don't know of any genuine products beyond GitHub Copilot. Unfortunately, they've already developed that I'm super excited about, because there's some fundamental ways of using this that are hard to navigate. Okay. Foundation models. In the beginning, foundation models are models trained on broad data at scale such that they can be adapted to a wide range of downstream tasks. This is something new under the sun. That at the bottom, you have your foundation model. Then you adapt that foundation model with a great deal of secondary training, and we call those adaptations large language models. And then we put an interface on top of those large language models, and we call that ChatGPT. The term of art that you need to remember is foundation model. And so foundation model is bigger than a large language model because it applies to image and audio and video and everything that isn't take most of the internet and stuff it into a computer. So foundation models, large language models, services. With me so far? Excellent. Generative pre-trained transformers. I like to say ChatGPT because I'm silly, but also because it's a lot easier than remembering GPT. A very common error that I hear is people reversing the letters, so I say ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a specific sort of machine learning algorithm for natural language processing. Natural language processing has been around since the 70s. We have been working on this since the 50s. This is the latest go. The way to think about this is a transformer of text. And so I got Bing to make me an electrical transformer made out of books, right? It transforms text. because it predicts what word will come next. ChatGPT is a specific instance of a large language model. Now, what I'm going to get into later is that ChatGPT has been trained to emulate a chatbot. Remember that. However, here is a representative error. Back in May, when I was researching this the first time, I asked the large language model, who invented the general purpose transformer? I was reading a different article and they were talking about general purpose technologies. And then it responded, a general purpose transformer is a type of large language model. This is utter bullshit. Delivered in authoritative language without any thought about accuracy. And it was entirely happy to continue on without correcting me. Because you own your output. If you enter the wrong numbers in a calculator, it will give you the wrong answer. If you enter the right prompt in a large language model, it will usually give you the right answer. We're not perfect yet. You own your output.
Quick question. Does it tend to weight within the algorithm text that is more recent than text that is more distant in the past?
No.
Okay, so just because there's a lot of general chat about ChatGPT right now is not going to give it more weight on the text.
Well, especially because its training run ended in 2021. There's a great deal of nuance there, and we have to be very specific about which models we're talking about. But there is no temporality in the input data. There is merely text, or rather tokens. We'll get to that in a second. So that is wrong in two ways. No, this is great. So first off, this is not a search engine. You must never mistake these tools for search engines. They do not operate on facts. They do not operate on a database. They operate on a statistical model of all of the words that have been input. Which means that if you say, only give me sources after this date or before this date, it will do so in its language, but it will have very little relationship to the sources themselves. Also, it's very bad at math. It's notably worse at math. So that sort of date comparison thing, you'll get about 50% accuracy on even if you give it the data. Because these things are good at the opposite of what computers normally are good at, and bad, like they are opposite to a normal computer. And a normal computer deals with facts and data quite well, and deals with interpretation very poorly. This is the exact opposite. Ethan Mollick coined the term analytic engine rather than a search engine, and I think that is an excellent metaphor that we will get to in a bit.